The map says I should be safe here. The hunger clawing at my throat says the map is wrong. It's day 365, and the only thing I'm sure of is that I'm running out of time to finish mapping the world's last silent zones. The map says I should be safe here. The hunger clawing at my throat says the map is wrong. It's day 365. 1 year since the world ended, and my mission to find the silent zones has become a race against the clock ticking in my own blood. The bite on my arm, a gift from 200 days ago, burns with a cold fire. It whispers promises of power, of an end to fear, an end to pain, an end to me. I grip the pen, my knuckles white. The tremor in my hand is worse today. I have to finish this. I have to chart the last pockets of silence before the noise inside me drowns out everything else. This is entry 365. My name is Elara, and this might be my last. It started with a promise to Liam, his obsession. He was the brilliant one, the cartographer who saw patterns in the chaos. The infected aren't random, Elara, he'd say, his eyes wild with discovery, hunched over maps scavenged from abandoned ranger stations. They're drawn to noise, Elara, he'd say, the ghost signals of the old world. But that means there must be places with no signal, places of true silence, safe zones. He called them silent zones, pockets of the world deaf to the apocalypse, our sanctuary, our hope. He'd spent months developing the theory, crafting the specialized equipment to detect these zones of absolute radio and acoustic nulls. We were on our first real expedition, tracking a potential zone deep in the Cascades, when the world reminded us that hope is a luxury, a simple mistake, a loose rock on a ravine pass. I slipped. A small cluster of them, trapped below, heard the clatter. Liam, he got me out. He always did. But in the chaos, one of them caught my arm, a searing, impossible pain. He cleaned it, bandaged it, told me it would be okay. We both knew he was lying. We had 1 dose of military-grade suppressant, a stopgap, not a cure. He made me take it. That night, as the fever raged, he held my hand and made me promise. Finish the map, Elara. Promise me. Don't let it be for nothing. When I woke up, the fever had broken, but Liam was gone. His pack, his rifle, his maps, all gone. All he left was his journal and a single freshly drawn circle on my map, a radio tower to the east, our next target. That was 165 days ago. The suppressant is long gone. Now all I have is the promise and the hunger. The mission of mapping the world's last silent zones is no longer about finding a future for us. It's about leaving a legacy, a guide for whoever is left, a final act of defiance against the monster I'm becoming. The tower on the horizon is more than just a target. It's the first word in the last sentence of my story. I check my rifle, the cold steel of familiar comfort. Every step towards it is a step further away from the woman I was, and a step closer to something else. The hunger agrees. It wants me to go east, and for now, our goals align. The landscape on the way to the tower is a graveyard of the modern world. Cars lie silent in mile-long coffins on the highways, their metal skins peeling like sunburnt flesh. The towns are worse. Empty houses with doors hanging open like slack jaws, their insides picked clean by the desperate and the dead. I move on the edges, a ghost in a world of ghosts. The infection has changed me in more ways than the hunger. My hearing is sharper. I can pick up the groan of stressed metal a mile away, the skittering of rats in a wall, the wet, shuffling gait of the infected long before I can see them. It's a gift and a curse. A constant symphony of decay playing in my ears. Sometimes, when the hunger is strong, the sounds warp. The shuffling of the dead sounds like a rhythm, a heartbeat. The wind through broken windows sounds like a whisper, calling my name. I have to fight it, focus on the mission.
Post-apocalyptic cartography is a brutal science. It's not just about drawing lines on a map. It's about reading the story of the dead. A cluster of bodies near a pharmacy tells you the supplies are gone. An abandoned fortified camp with the gates broken inwards tells you that no wall is high enough. Every street is a lesson in survival strategy, and I am a devout student. I found a symbol 3 days ago carved into a road sign. 3 concentric circles with a line struck through them. I'd seen it once before, in the margin of Liam's journal, next to a frantic scribble. They don't see it. A different frequency? I logged it, photographed it, but couldn't decipher it. Another open loop. Another question in a world that offers no answers. The tower looms closer now, a steel skeleton against a bruised purple sky. It's on a ridge, commanding a view of the entire valley. A perfect strategic position. Which means it was perfect for someone else, too. I slow my pace, my hand tight on my rifle. The silence around the base of the ridge is unnatural. Not the deep, no-field silence Liam searched for, but a dead silence. The kind that comes after a slaughter. The kind that means something is waiting. The hunger inside me stirs, not with malice, but with anticipation. A cold dread washes over me. Is it my anticipation or its? I can no longer tell the difference. This is the first test. If there's a silent zone here, the equipment in my pack will confirm it. If there's a threat, the rifle in my hands will answer it.
And if the monster inside me tries to take control, I don't know what happens then. One step at a time, Ilara. Finish the map. That's all that matters. The base of the tower was a mess, an old military checkpoint, long since overrun. Sandbags had burst, spilling their guts onto the cracked asphalt. The husks of burned-out Humvees sat like sleeping iron beasts. And bodies, soldiers and infected, locked in a final skeletal embrace. I moved through the carnage, my senses on fire. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every gust of wind sounded like a gasp. The infection was making me paranoid, amplifying the dread. The entrance to the tower's maintenance building was barred from the outside. A strange detail. Why lock something in? I cut the bar with bolt cutters from my pack, the snap of the metal echoing in the dead air. The inside smelled of ozone and rot. Emergency power was still on, a low, persistent hum that vibrated through the soles of my boots. Computers lined the walls, their screens dark save for one. It displayed a single cycling string of numbers, 14-88-32-45. It repeated over and over. A code? A coordinate? I keyed it into my GPS, but it was nonsensical, pointing to the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It was another dead end. Frustration warred with the gnawing hunger. I was about to leave when I saw it. Carved into the metal casing of the main transmitter, almost hidden by shadow, was the same symbol I saw on the road sign. 3 concentric circles, bisected by a single line. And beneath it, a word scratched with a knife point. Listen. Listen to what? The hum of the machines? The wind? Then I heard it. It wasn't a sound, not really. It was a feeling. A pressure in my ears, a vibration in my bones. It was the signal. The numbers weren't a destination, they were a frequency. Liam's notes flashed in my mind. He had been working on a theory that some infected, the older ones, the more evolved ones, communicated on a subsonic frequency. A shepherd's call for the flock. Was this it? I pulled out my own modified receiver, a relic of Liam's genius, and tuned it to the frequency. The speaker crackled, hissed, and then a voice. Garbled, distorted by static, but undeniably human. Repeat. Locus point alpha is compromised. Fall back to... The message cut out, replaced by the same repeating string of numbers, only this time they were spoken in a cold, monotone voice. This changed everything. This wasn't a random anomaly. This was a broadcast.
Someone was out there, coordinating, communicating. The silent zones? What if they weren't natural? What if they were being created? The thought was staggering. My mission, this entire year of Wasteland Reconnaissance, had been built on a flawed premise.
I wasn't just mapping the apocalypse. I was stumbling into a war I didn't understand. And then a new horror. As I stared at the symbol, a flash of memory, not my own, seared through my mind. A vision of a hand, my hand, carving that same symbol into a tree. My stomach lurched. The infection, it wasn't just a passenger. It was a library of dead memories. Had the person I was bitten by been connected to this? Was this symbol a part of the virus itself? I backed away from the console, my heart hammering against my ribs. The hunger was back, stronger this time, laced with a terrifying alien curiosity. It wanted to understand the signal. It recognized the symbol. I had to get out. I copied the broadcast data, took a photo of the symbol, and fled the tower, leaving the humming machines and their ghost messages behind. The journey ahead was no longer a simple line on a map. It was a plunge into a conspiracy buried under the ashes of the old world. The numbers from the broadcast, when cross-referenced with Liam's cipher notes, weren't coordinates, but a vector, a direction and a distance, a new breadcrumb. My zombie safe zone strategy had to evolve. It was no longer about avoidance, it was about infiltration. I had to find the source of this signal, find the people behind it, and pray I could do it before the part of me that recognized their symbol took over for good. The vector pointed me south, into the sprawling, sun-scorched decay of what used to be the agricultural heartland. The forests and mountains were gone, replaced by endless flat plains of dead crops and cracked earth. The silence here was different. It was an oppressive, heavy silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind across the dead fields. There were fewer places to hide, and the infected roamed in vast, slow-moving herds that stained the horizon like a creeping blight. My survival strategy had to adapt. I learned to move with the wind, to use the shimmering heat haze as camouflage. I learned that a dried-up irrigation ditch could be a life-saving trench, and a grain silo was a fortress if you could reach it. The infection was a constant companion on this long road. The flashes of memory became more frequent, more vivid. I saw through the eyes of a soldier during the first chaotic days of the outbreak. I felt the terror of a mother hiding her child in a cellar. I experienced a dozen different deaths, a dozen different moments of agony and fear. It was tearing my own identity apart, piece by piece. Who was Ilara when her mind was a scrapbook of the dead? But there were other changes too, frightening changes. One evening, pinned down in a ditch by a small group of infected, I felt a surge of rage, the familiar fire of the hunger. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just blind fury, it was cold, calculated. A thought, not my own, echoed in my head. They are blind, they are deaf, make them see. And I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, what it meant. I focused on the leader of the pack, a gaunt creature in the tattered remains of a farmer's overalls. I focused all my will, all the alien energy coiling in my gut, and I pushed. I projected an image into its dead mind, a sound, a deer breaking cover to my left. The creature's head snapped around, its jaw slack. It let out a low growl and began to shamble in the direction of the phantom sound. The others, mindless, followed their leader. I had turned them, I had controlled them. I lay in that ditch for an hour, shaking, my body drenched in a cold sweat. This was not a symptom of a disease. This was a weapon, a power I had no right to possess. Was this what the symbol meant? This control? Were the people broadcasting the signal, like me? Or were they the ones who created me? The question haunted my every step. The journey became a blur of scorching days and freezing nights. I scavenged what I could,
Stale crackers, canned beans, precious, precious water from the cisterns of abandoned farms. My supplies were dwindling, and the hunger was a constant, aching void that food could not fill. It wanted something else, something warm, something alive. I fought it with every fiber of my being, clinging to the memory of Liam's face, to the promise I made. The map was my anchor, my sanity. Every new detail I added, every potential shelter I marked, every danger zone I outlined was a small victory against the chaos outside and inside. I was no longer just a cartographer. I was a historian of the fall, a prophet of the new world, drawing the scripture of survival. Finally, after weeks of travel that felt like years, I reached the destination the vector had pointed to. It wasn't a town or a military base. It was a research outpost nestled in a small, forgotten valley. And from the moment I saw it, I knew something was terribly wrong. The silence was absolute. Not the dead silence of a graveyard, but the deep, profound, null-field silence Liam had dreamed of. My equipment went wild, the needle dropping to zero. It was a silent zone, but it wasn't natural. The entire outpost was surrounded by a ring of strange, slender pylons that hummed with a subsonic frequency I could feel in my teeth. And at the center of it all, a scene of utter devastation. The lab was torn apart, not by infected, but by human violence. Papers were scattered everywhere, covered in frantic, terrified handwriting. I found a journal, its pages stained with blood. The entry spoke of a project codenamed Symbiote. They weren't trying to cure the virus.
They were trying to control it, to weaponize it. They had engineered it to create a psychic link, a hive mind. The symbol was their control sigil. The pylons were a pacification field, designed to block the signal and control the infected within the zone. But they had lost control. The final entry was a single, terrifying sentence. It's not a hive mind, it's one mind, and it's awake. This was the midpoint twist in my journey, the moment the map of my world was torn to shreds. The silent zones weren't sanctuaries, they were cages. And the people I was tracking weren't survivors, they were monsters. Or worse, they were my creators. The hunger inside me didn't recoil in horror. It resonated with the hum of the pylons, a feeling of coming home. I ran from that place, the truth a heavier burden than my pack and my rifle combined. My mission was no longer about finding silence. It was about finding the source of the signal, the one mind, the entity that was trying to turn the entire world into its puppets. And I, with its own weapon flowing through my veins, was the only one who could get close enough to stop it. The researcher's journal from the outpost was a Rosetta Stone of horror. It gave me names, project details, and, most importantly, a location. The nerve center of their entire operation. The place that powered their network of pacification fields and broadcast the master signal. The Grand Coulee Dam. It was a fortress of concrete and steel, a monument of the old world repurposed to control the new one. Getting there was a pilgrimage through hell. The lands closer to the dam were more densely populated with the infected, and they were different, more organized. They moved in coordinated patterns, flowing like rivers of bodies through the ruined suburbs and industrial parks. It was clear the signal was stronger here. My own abilities were growing stronger too. The flashes of memory were gone, replaced by a constant low-level stream of consciousness from the infected around me. I could feel their hunger, their confusion, their residual echoes of pain. It was overwhelming, a psychic scream that threatened to shatter my mind. But I learned to shield myself, to build walls in my own head, and I learned to push back. I could create diversions on a larger scale now, turning entire sections of a herd away from my path. I was a ghost in their machine, a virus in their network. But the cost was high.
Every time I used the power, I lost a little more of myself. My reflection in a shard of glass was a stranger's. My eyes were hollow, my skin pale, and sometimes, for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw a flicker of cold, blue light in their depths. The dam rose from the desolate landscape like a mountain range.
It was even more formidable than I had imagined. The perimeter was heavily fortified, not just against the dead, but against the living. Watchtowers, barricades, and armed guards. This was the source of the silence, and it was inhabited. I watched them for 2 days from a ridge, studying their routines, their patrols. They were a community, a small city clinging to the back of this concrete monster. They had power, clean water, and safety. But they were prisoners too. The pylons that created the silence zone also kept them locked in. I saw no way to approach without being shot on sight. They were terrified, and terrified people are more dangerous than any zombie. I had to find another way. My post-apocalyptic cartography skills were my only advantage. I studied old schematics of the dam I had downloaded to my tablet years ago when the internet was still a thing. I found what I was looking for. A series of maintenance tunnels and spillway access shafts, long since decommissioned. A back door. The entrance was underwater, a gaping black hole in the murky depths of the reservoir. It was a desperate, insane plan, but it was the only one I had. I waterproofed my pack, took a deep breath, and plunged into the cold, silent water. The tunnel was a claustrophobic nightmare of rust and darkness. I navigated by touch, my hands scraping against algae-slick concrete, the weight of the entire Columbia River pressing down on me. I fought against the burning in my lungs, the panic that threatened to consume me. The hunger inside me was silent, dormant in the crushing pressure and cold. For a few terrifying minutes, I was just a Laura again, just a woman, alone in the dark, about to drown. I broke the surface in a maintenance shaft deep inside the damn superstructure, gasping, shivering, but alive. I was in. The dam was a city of humming turbines and echoing hallways. I moved like a phantom through its bowels, avoiding patrols, sticking to the shadows. I could feel the signal here, not as a broadcast, but as a physical presence. It was a constant, oppressive weight, a thrumming power that made my teeth ache and my thoughts feel sluggish. It was trying to find me, to assimilate me. I found their central command, a vast chamber overlooking the main turbine hall. And I saw him, the leader. A man in a stained lab coat, his face a mask of paranoia and exhaustion. He stood before a massive map of the country, dotted with lights, some green, some red, the silent zones. He was directing the flow of the infected, using the signal like a conductor's baton, moving them away from certain areas, concentrating them on others. He wasn't just creating safe zones, he was weaponizing the hordes. This was a power no one should ever have. I raised my rifle, the sight settling on the back of his head. I could end it, right here, right now. But then what? The network would collapse. The pacification fields would fail. Millions of infected, suddenly directionless, would surge across the continent. It would be a tidal wave of death. I couldn't trade one apocalypse for another. There had to be another way. As I watched, another person entered the room, a woman. She moved with a strange, fluid grace, and when she spoke, her voice was calm, but carried an authority that made the leader flinch. I saw the symbol, the 3 concentric circles, tattooed on her neck, and in her eyes I saw the same cold blue light I had seen in my own reflection. She was like me, but she wasn't fighting it. She had embraced it. She was the one mind, the queen in this hive. And she turned her head, slowly, and looked directly at the shadows where I was hiding. She smiled. She had known I was here the entire time. The hunger inside me roared to life, not with aggression, but with recognition, a feeling of submission, of reverence. The rifle in my hands suddenly felt impossibly heavy. My carefully constructed mental walls began to crumble. She raised a hand,
not in threat, but in invitation. "Welcome home," her voice echoed, not in the room, but inside my head. Her name was Serena. She was the lead researcher on the Symbio project, the first to test the engineered virus on herself. She hadn't lost control. She had become control. The one mind wasn't a monster. It was her. She explained everything, her voice a calm sea in the storm of my mind. The outbreak had been an accident, a containment breach from a rival bioweapons lab. Her project was humanity's only response. She wasn't trying to destroy the world. She was trying to manage it, to herd the chaos into a semblance of order. The silence zones were not cages. They were preserves, sanctuaries for the uninfected humans she was trying to protect. The hordes she directed were not weapons of terror, but tools. She used them to create fire breaks, to cull the more aggressive, mutated infected, to slowly, painstakingly clean the world. "You see, Alara," she projected into my thoughts, her blue eyes holding mine. "The virus isn't a disease. It's the next stage of evolution. It connects us, removes the selfishness, the fear, the hatred that destroyed the old world. It offers unity, true unity." I looked at the map, at the green lights of the silence zones, and the red tides of the hordes she controlled. It was a terrifying, beautiful, insane kind of order. A world without free will, governed by a single benevolent intelligence. A perfect, silent world. Liam would have been horrified. He believed in freedom, in the messy, chaotic, beautiful struggle of humanity.
He would have called this tyranny. The hunger inside me, however, felt the logic in her words. It craved the peace, the purpose, the connection she offered. It wanted me to join her, to add my strength to the whole, to finally stop fighting. And then the alarms blared. A klaxon wailed through the dam, red lights flashing. On the monitors, I saw it. A sea of bodies pressing against the dam's outer defenses. A horde, bigger than any I had ever seen. But these were different. They were frenzied, uncoordinated. Their eyes burned with a malevolent yellow light. Rivals, Serena's thought was sharp with alarm. Another faction. They want the signal for themselves. They want to burn it all down. The dam's automated defenses opened up, but they were being overwhelmed. The outer barricades buckled. The siege had begun. Serena's control was absolute, but it had a limit. She couldn't control this new mutated strain. They were immune to her signal. "I can't stop them," her mental voice was strained. "They'll breach the core. If they gain control of the broadcast." She didn't need to finish. It would be total, mindless chaos, the end of everything. "But you can," she said, turning to me. "You're different, Alara. Your infection wasn't from my strain. It was a wild variant. You're a bridge. You can speak to them. You can turn them." She was asking me to do the one thing I had sworn I would never do. To fully embrace the power. To let the monster out of its cage. To become the very thing I had been fighting for a year. I looked at the chaos on the screen, at the terrified faces of the dam's human inhabitants scrambling to defend their home. I thought of Liam's promise. Finish the map. What did that mean now? Was the map a guide to freedom or a blueprint for a cage? The choice was mine. Preserve humanity's chaotic freedom and risk its extinction? Or embrace a new, controlled existence and guarantee its survival? The screams of the dying echoed from outside. There was no more time. I made my choice. I closed my eyes, shut out the noise, and listened to the hunger. And for the first time, I didn't fight it. I let it in. Power, raw and overwhelming, flooded through me. The blue light in my eyes erupted into a brilliant flame. I walked to the command console, past Serena, and placed my hand on the map. I reached out with my mind, not with a whisper, but with a roar.
I projected my will, my rage, my sorrow, my hope into the frenzied minds of the attacking horde. I didn't give them an order. I gave them a memory. Liam's memory. The moment he pushed me to safety. The moment he turned to face the horde alone. The moment of his sacrifice. I showed them love. I showed them loss. And in the heart of that psychic hurricane, I gave them a new target.
The ones who had sent them. The rival faction, hidden miles away. The yellow-eyed horde stopped its assault on the dam. As one, the entire sea of bodies turned, a tide of vengeance, and began to flow away, back into the wasteland, seeking their true masters. Silence fell over the dam, a true, earned silence. Serena looked at me, her expression a mixture of awe and fear. I had done something she thought was impossible. I hadn't just controlled them, I had communicated with them. I had given them a purpose born of emotion, not command. I walked to a recording station, my steps heavy. The map was done. The nature of the silence zones was understood. My mission was complete. I recorded my final entry, my voice steady, clear, and no longer my own. I detailed everything: the dam, Serena, the rival faction, the truth of the virus. A complete map of the new world and its masters. I left it for whoever might find it, a warning and a choice. As I finished, I caught my reflection in the dark screen. My eyes glowed with a soft, steady blue light. The hunger was gone, replaced by a quiet, immense power. The infection hadn't been a death sentence, it was a transformation. I was something new, a new mind in the world. And then a whisper from the static between worlds, a voice I thought I'd never hear again. Faint but clear, not a memory, a message. Ilara, find us. It was Liam. He was alive. And he was like me.